The woods beyond Oak Hollow are older than the village itself. Locals call it Bellwood. They say if you hear the bell, you mustn't follow the sound. Lena Porter didn't believe in folk tales. She was a folklorist, yes, but a skeptic. Her podcast, Echoes of the Past, was about deconstructing legends, rationalizing them. She arrived in Oak Hollow in late April, just as the forest bloomed. Her plan, to spend a week cataloging the Bellwood stories and find the source of the sound. Locals were friendly, but wary. The bell rings only for those it chooses, one man said. Lena smiled politely. On her third night, she heard it, far off. One chime, then another, distant, metallic, and impossibly clear. She followed. The forest was dark but navigable. The sound guided her. Eventually, she came to a clearing she hadn't seen before. At its center, a moss-covered chapel. No doors, only one window, stained glass, depicting a robed figure ringing a bell. And above, in the belfry, the bell swayed. Lena stared in awe. It was real. She circled the chapel. No entrance, but the air shimmered near the wall. Her hand passed through. Inside, the chapel was larger than it seemed. Dozens of figures knelt in pews, dry, mummified, their hands clasped in eternal prayer. The bell chimed. Lena tried to leave. Her legs wouldn't move, her arms folded. She knelt. Her mind screamed. Her body obeyed. Time passed. Days. Weeks. She saw visions, pilgrims of centuries past, led into the woods by dreams, drawn by the bell, entranced. Some tried to resist, none succeeded. Each became part of the congregation. The bell, she realized, was not an object. It was an entity. An ancient force bound to this forest, calling, feeding. And now, through her eyes, it could see the world again. Outside, spring passed into summer, then autumn. Hikers sometimes hear the bell, and sometimes they go missing. In a podcast episode released months after Lena vanished, her voice returns. But it's not quite her. It's deeper, slower, and it ends with a chime. Every autumn, the villagers of Millbury rebuilt the same scarecrow. Not a new one, the same one. With the same crooked frame, the same tattered overalls, the same burlap sack for a head, though somehow it never seemed any more worn than the year before. Children were told not to look at it too long, and adults never said its name aloud. If it even had one. 12-year-old Elsie had only just moved to Millbury with her mother. Her father had vanished 2 months prior in the city under strange circumstances, and her mother had insisted on starting over in the countryside. Fresh air, fewer memories, she'd said. But Elsie felt the chill in this village, a kind of stillness that reminded her of the moment before a thunderstorm. It started with the whispering. One afternoon, Elsie wandered near the cornfield at the edge of the village. The corn was shoulder-high and green with late summer life. In the middle stood the scarecrow. She approached, heart thudding with nervous curiosity. As she stared up at its button eyes and stitched mouth, she heard it. "You're not from here, are you?" She spun around. No one. "They don't know what you are, but I do." The voice was soft, neither male nor female, carried on the breeze like pollen. Elsie ran home, but she couldn't sleep. That night she dreamed of soil, of arms reaching from beneath the earth, of hollow eyes stitched with thread. Over the next week, the voice followed her, only near the field. Each time it grew more distinct. It told her of the agreement, a pact made long ago. One soul every harvest, in exchange for protection from the things below. Her father, the voice claimed, had once lived in Millbury, He'd broken the agreement. He tried to leave. Elsie didn't want to believe it. But then she found the photo, hidden in a chest in the attic behind a loose board. A black and white image, weathered and cracked. Her father, young, terrified, standing behind the scarecrow. Except the scarecrow had a face. His face. Driven by curiosity and dread, she began to investigate. Old church records, school rosters, and grave markers. She found more names, people who had vanished, people who had once tried to leave. The villagers were watching her now, smiling too wide, waving too slowly. One evening, Elsie snuck back into the field. Beneath the scarecrow, she found a hatch. It opened into darkness. She descended. What she found was not a basement, it was a crypt. Walls lined with stitched masks. Rows of shelves with bones sorted by size. A stone altar covered in dried blood. The scarecrow's voice echoed in her head. "We never forget." She turned to flee and saw her mother, standing at the top of the stairs, smiling. "It's your turn now, Elsie." The villagers had always known. It was a legacy, a ritual. The scarecrow was not a guardian, it was a container, and it needed a host. On the day of the harvest festival, Elsie returned to the field. Alone. The voice welcomed her. "We remember you." She climbed the wooden frame. The air was still. No birds, no wind. No sound but her own breathing and the rustle of the corn. Her fingers moved as if guided. She tied the sack over her head. The scarecrow blinked and whispered. The Fenlands are a strange place. Flat as paper, damp as the underworld, they're woven with narrow channels and miles of shifting reeds. Fog settles low and heavy at night, and sound doesn't travel well. That's where the Lantern Man walks. They say he was once a ferryman who led people into the marsh and let the tide take them. In life, he was hanged for his crimes. In death, he returned with the lantern in hand, swinging like a pendulum, to collect more souls. Thomas Carter was an outsider, a YouTuber chasing myths. He'd filmed haunted houses, cryptid sightings, and local legends across the country. But the story of the Lantern Man had intrigued him. Locals in Camberwick refused to speak of it on camera. One old woman spat at his feet, so naturally, Thomas went in alone. At dusk, with his night vision camera and flashlight, he entered the reeds. The sky dimmed to violet, then ash. An hour passed, then another. Then, movement. A light. A small bobbing flame in the distance, not flickering like fire. Steady, purposeful. He followed it. The reeds closed in. The ground softened. Mud sucked at his boots. Then, silence. His camera glitched. The lantern grew brighter. Thomas tried to speak, but his voice caught. The light stopped moving, hung in the air. Then, it moved toward him. He turned and ran. The reeds snagged his jacket. The air grew thick. He tripped, falling face first into water. When he surfaced, the marsh was still. The lantern was gone. So was his camera. He wandered for hours, but never found the path back. At dawn, locals found him on the church steps, mud-caked, silent, his pupils blown wide. In his hand, a cracked lens. He never spoke again. Later, Thomas began drawing. Dozens of sketches, all the same. A figure in a black coat, its face a blur, holding a lantern. Doctors labeled it trauma-induced psychosis. But the locals said nothing. Years later, campers near the Fenlands report a figure wandering at night, swinging a camera and a lantern. A local girl went missing in 2022, last seen near the marsh. Her phone was found days later. Inside were videos. One showed a dim light approaching through the fog. The last frame. Her face lit by a lantern, eyes wide with realization. Then darkness.